cursed be the ground for our sake. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for us. For out of the ground we were taken for the dust that we are, and to the dust we shall return. From the Dust podcast features people who have had life-changing experiences. Here they share their stories and testimonials about how God can move and change a person's life. Welcome to the From the Dust podcast. Take a listen. Open your hearts and ears. Here's your host, James Science.
Hello. Welcome back to From the Dust podcast. I am your host, James Science. Whatever you are, whatever you do, hope you are highly favored and highly blessed. If you have a story or testimony you would like to share, go and hit me up at From the Dust podcast at outlook.com. That's From the Dust podcast at outlook.com. Stories need to be told. Voices need to be heard. Well, today we have a guest, very powerful testimony, if I should say. Been through a lot growing up, has done a lot. So we're just going to go ahead and get to it. And it's Stacia, am I correct?
Yeah, it's Stacia. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Blessed to be able to share your story. Blessed to be able to just to be behind this mic and be a blessing and light to other people.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. Thank you for taking the time to invite me, and I'm excited to be able to share.
I tell everybody their stories and their testimonies always have been on this podcast has always reached the right person. So I know in fact that it's going to reach somebody. So I heard your testimony. It's a pretty powerful. You've been through a lot and done a lot. So let's just get into the beginning of your childhood. How was your childhood? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois, in the middle of the cornfields. And do you want me to just start off with like the beginning of my childhood?
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll see what goes from there.
Okay, awesome. So like I said, I grew up in the middle of the cornfield, not a lot going on, you know. We grew up kind of poor. I mean, I've been to third world countries. We didn't grow up that poor, but we grew up, you know, below the poverty line, you know, for where we were living. At times we even, I mean, it sounds worse now than it was then, but we even ate out of the dumpsters. Like they would throw out, you know, like the baked goods, like cakes and pies and breads and things like that. And my mom and her friend, they knew what days they would throw them out, and they would take all of us kids down there and they'd toss the littler ones over, and we would get like, I mean, so if that gives you an example of, you know, we depended on, you know, like the Angel Tree and the free lunch programs and things like that. So we definitely grew up below the poverty line. We struggled, you know, my mom struggled. She was abandoned at a young age. So she struggled with her self-worth. You know, she found worth in trying to be loved in men and in different things. And she had 6 kids. We all had different dads, except for my youngest 2. They're twins, so obviously they had the same dad. But yeah, she struggled, and she struggled with all of our fathers left. So I was in a fatherless home. I was in the middle. I'm the middle of 6 kids, and yeah, we just struggled. I just remember struggling from a young age. I just remember, you know, it was just different than the other kids. You know, we kind of always had the heart. We went without water and electricity more times than I'd like to admit. You know, we carried water jugs from the neighbors' houses for months on months, you know, and, you know, begged and borrowed to pay the bills too many times, you know, than I want to admit either, you know. But she loved us. I know that. We had a mom who loved us like crazy, but we struggled, you know. And she struggled with, like I said, she was abandoned. So she really was trying to find love, trying to find acceptance and feel, you know, valued by somebody. So she didn't have the best choice in men, you know. So just different guys in and out. And she had a drug addiction too. After some years, I remember her going from like, you know, being the mom that cooked the meals and things like that to being the mom that kind of, we would get our food card and like we would run out of food way earlier than we should have. And she would just be, you know, just like selling our card or whatever. And just like the boyfriends that she had weren't always great. So we struggled with that. And then how far do you want me to go? So that's childhood.
Well, we can let's. How was the dynamics with your siblings? How was the relationship with them?
Oh, it was good. I mean, I had an older brother. I have one brother and the rest sisters. And my brother, he was a boy, a boy who grew up hard. My mom was the cool mom. She's the mom that let us, drink at home because she was like, I'd rather you do it here than do it out there. And she was the mom that, like, she smoked cigarettes and she'd be out of cigarettes. So even though we're too young to smoke cigarettes, she'd be like, I know you got a cigarette. Like, let me get one, because she didn't have any. So my brother, she had him young. She was 16 when she had him. So she was kind of a baby raising a baby. And so they were more friends, and then my mom got into drugs and my brother kind of rebelled out and had young sisters. And like I said, we struggled. So he did what he could, to try to help. And he got himself in a lot of trouble. And so I remember him being around from when we were really young, but then at a certain point, him just kind of being off. He was in and out of prison and stuff, just trying to do his own thing. And then I had younger sisters like that. My mom, she like I said, she struggled a lot. So I had baby sisters that I was mini mom to. I remember being 8 years old and having a twin on each hip, carrying them around, just loving on them and changing them and feeding them and doing the mini mom thing. And then I had older sisters that two of them didn't live with us, and one did for a little while, and our relationship was okay, but I had a real strong relationship with my little sisters. They were my babies. And then there was me. But it was all around it was good. My brother wasn't around a lot. The rest of us kids just kind of were there, just doing our thing.
Well, sounds like you guys had a pretty close bond as siblings. Am I correct?
We did, yeah, we definitely did. I loved him a lot.
Despite the circumstances, there was some love there.
Definitely.
That's good. I've hearing your testimony as a young girl growing up, it got pretty deep. Are you comfortable sharing with some of the times?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's why I feel like God trusted me with that story. You know what I mean? Because He wants me to share it, and I'm completely comfortable with sharing all of it.
You want to share your experiences with some of the issues that were dealt with your mom's relationship with the men that were there?
Yeah. So my mom's addiction started getting pretty deep, and a couple of the guys that she was in a relationship with that were like live-in boyfriends, they were just really toxic people, and so from the age, so I started, like I said, we would drink at home and stuff. I never was the best kid. Let me just put that out there from the beginning. I wasn't great from the beginning, but because we were like the party house. We were the hangout house, and my mom would have her boyfriends over. They'd be doing their thing, and we would just be there involved in whatever. But so she had a boyfriend in particular who I remember the very first time. So before things got real deep, I'll just go touch on like the first thing that happened. I know my testimony got winded and kind of long. That wasn't supposed to go like that. I just started going and it just went. So I don't want to go super long. I'm gonna try to minimize it a little bit, but still catch the details. So one of her boyfriends, my mom was working, and there was an incident where he hadn't really fully abused me, but I remember him doing things that were very inappropriate. And we had a babysitter we used to go to, and he had done he had said some things to me and had me sit on his lap and said some things that were asked me to do some things, and I felt like they were wrong, but I really wasn't sure because I was still pretty young. And so I told some friends at school whenever afterwards, because I'm my mom was a mean mom, so I didn't feel comfortable telling her yet. And it wasn't so far over the line, but it was just enough to where it was man, this was kind of I don't know if your stepdads are supposed to do this. I don't really know if that's okay. But so I told a couple friends at school, and then and I was like, you guys can't say anything, this is what happened. And so then a little while later, I told my babysitter, And I couldn't even say it because I was embarrassed. I wrote it on a paper, and I remember giving it to her. And I just remember her gasping and being like, we got to go talk to your mom. And so she took me to my mom's work. And I remember standing outside. My mom worked at this facility, and I remember standing outside, and I remember her showing my mom the papers. And my mom, I remember her looking down at me, and then she got on the phone. She went in, she got on the phone, and she called her boyfriend, and she had him come over, and we're like standing at the end of this lane and of this facility, and she asked him, she looks at me and the babysitter's standing there, and she looks at him, and she's all, is this true? Like, did you do this? And he was like, no, she's lying. She's lying. She got in trouble recently. She's just trying to like, this is not true. She's lying on me. So my mom sends her boyfriend back off. Like, he pulled up, I'll never forget, he pulled up on this yellow old school bike with the curled handlebars and the really thin tires. I literally can smell the smell in the air when I talk about it because it's so familiar. But she asked him, and he said no, it wasn't true. And he got back on that bike and he rode away. And my mom told the babysitter, she said, she's going to stay here with me. Go ahead and go back with the other kids. And she left me there. And we lived a couple blocks away from where my mom worked at the time. So I walked home with my mom after. I stayed with her for her shift. And I remember it was like 10 o'clock at night. And we walked home, and there's this little produce place right behind our house. And my mom stopped me in the alley. And granted, my mom went to be with the Lord. So I always feel bad whenever I have to tell the details. She went to be with the Lord way after, like after all these things I'm about to talk about. But I always feel guilty having to bring up the details because, you know, they're hurtful details to have to say about her. You know what I mean? But I remember her stopping me in that alley on our way home. And I remember her looking at me, and I remember her saying, don't you want me to be happy? Like, don't you want me to be loved? Like, I don't understand why you would say these things. Like, I don't understand why are you making these things up? And I just remember a couple tears went down my face, and I was like, but I'm not making these things up. And she's like, Stacia, you're making these things up. And then she would like shake her head and look me in my face, and she's like, you're making these things up. Don't you want me to be happy? And I'm like thinking in my head, like, I do want you to be happy. You know, like, I've watched you struggle to be loved your whole life. Of course I want you to be happy. You know, you deserve to be happy. And so we went back home that night, and rewind a little bit. I remember the conversation when she had that conversation with the guy in the end of the drive. I remember the look in that man's eyes. And I remember when she asked him if this was true, and he said no. And it was like, the way he looked at me, man, it was like he knew he won, you know, like he knew. And he had my mom so strung out on drugs at that point. It was not good. It was already super toxic. So she asked me that in the alley. We go back home. A few days later, the friends I had told at school, one of them told their mom. The mom already didn't like me because, like I said, I wasn't the best kid anyways. I kind of hung out with the wrong crowd. So DCFS came to my school, and I was in grade school, and this lady, she asked me, she took me out of a room, and she's like, you know, we heard these things from another child's mom. And she goes, is this true? And all I could think about was that conversation with my mom in that alley. And I'm like, no, it's not true. I made up those things, you know, because he had spanked me a couple weeks ago. And I was just upset. I was angry at him. So fast forward, my mom's, so that was an unfounded case. Fast forward, my mom's addiction got really bad. My mom went from just like kind of using to being like, I mean, she wouldn't sleep. I mean, she would stay up for weeks at a time. And then by the time she would sleep, she would be so messed up that she'd sleep for days. She couldn't keep a job. And right after that situation happened, the boyfriend went from just inappropriate words and trying to kind of touch me inappropriately to I had my older sister, me and her and I both, we slept in separate rooms, and we both had a twin sister in the room with us. After that, I want to say a couple months later, it went to full-blown rape. I mean, I remember the first time that he came into my room, I heard him leave my sister's room first. So for the next 4 years, we were both sexually abused by him a lot. And I mean, he was a really bad drug addict too. So it would get pretty toxic. They used to cook drugs in our house and stuff. And so when they would get on they would be on meth and stuff, and they would be so far out there, and he'd be up for days. He would be like so crazy. I remember multiple times that, I mean, he would threaten my mom's life, you know, or he would threaten with my little sisters. Like he had this gun. I remember him threatening my little sisters' lives. Like, and my older sister got to the point to where she couldn't take it anymore. And she ended up leaving. She moved out. She moved to her dad's in Texas. And, man, I wanted out of there so bad. But in my head, and I know it sounds so crazy now where I'm at, it sounds like crazy to even try to justify it like this. But in my head, I remember all those years he used to go to my older sister's room first, and then he would come to my room. And when my sister left, all I could think was, man, that's one less room he has to go to, you know? And if I go, what about my baby sisters? You know, like, what am I leaving them in? My mom doesn't believe me. She's so strung out, you know, he's so strung out. Like, it was just crazy. So in my mind, I kept thinking I was staying because I was protecting them, which I know now that that's crazy. And I needed to go tell someone, but that I wasn't protecting them at all. But anyways, do you want me to continue to the next part?
Yeah, let's I think this is what people need to hear, because not too many people are able to share what you're able to share. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
Okay. So for the next 4 years, the abuse just got worse. My sister, actually, who ended up in Texas, she ended up pregnant and by him before she left. And I forgot that in my actual testimony because I didn't want to share her business because we don't have the best relationship now. So I was worried about that. But so she ended up pregnant. That's why she left. And so she went to Texas. So for the next 4 years, abuse spirals out of control. I mean, he's coming into my bedroom, multiple times a week. And I was a mess. Like, I tried to commit suicide multiple times as a young girl. I mean, I was in and out. I went into a psych ward twice before I was like 13. And of course, it looked like I was just a bad kid. You know, I got in trouble at school. I lashed out because I was angry. You know, we were below the poverty line. We're already in the hood, you know, and I'm just, you know, I'm just hateful to everybody because I'm bitter and I'm angry and I'm, you know, so I remember turning right after my 15th birthday. So that started when I was 11, right after my 15th birthday. This had been going on for 4 years. And I just remember thinking, like, I had just got out of a psych ward. He had just, like, my birthday had been like a week before. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. You know, like, I can't live like this. I remember walking into my school and telling the counselor first, and then they took me to the principal. I remember going in and I remember telling them, like, I've been being raped at home for the last 4 years and I can't live like this anymore. If you don't get me help, I said, I remember saying, I'm wearing the same clothes I wore last night I put them right back on after he abused me. And I know you can get me help, and I need you to get me the help that I need right now, because if you don't, I'm going to go home and use the same gun that he puts to my sister's head or my mom's head, and I'm going to kill everybody. Like, I can't live like this. I'm going to kill them, and then I'm going to kill myself because I refuse to live like this another day. So they called DCFS, the same lady who had came all those years before she came, which I ended up having a great relationship with her. We grew a really strong bond. So what they did, like I said, my mom and her boyfriend, they also were involved in other drug activities. They were cooking drugs and stuff in our home. And so DCFS came and they started taking me from my school to the basement of the sheriff's, and they started writing up. They took me to doctors. They started building an underground case. They also had drug cases that they were trying to build at the same time because they were involved with so much stuff. So they started building this case, and then I remember they came to my mom. And during that time, like I said, I was bad. I got expelled from school. I literally beat a girl in the head with my lunch tray because I was so out of control. I mean, I got expelled from school. Like I said, just lots of crazy stuff. They ended up bringing my mom to, they came and got us one time from our house. The police did. They showed up. They built this underground case against this man, and they built up all this evidence. And then they got my mom, and they told my mom. They picked us up one night from my mom's house, and they said, and my mom, and they brought her, and they said, we need you to come. Stacia got in trouble at school, which it was a common thing. Stacia got in trouble at school. We need you to come down to the sheriff's department so we can talk to you. And so they took us down there, and they put my mom at this desk, and they had all this evidence laid out in front of her. And they were like, okay, this has been happening. and this is your chance to be on our side, or we're going to move forward with this case without you. And that's going to mean you're going to lose your children. And you're also going to be on the other side of these pending charges that, you know, not the sexual abuse charges, but the drug charges, because she was right up in it too. And my mom made a decision that day that, okay, there was enough evidence. She couldn't deny it. You know, it was literally right in her face. But like I said, my mom, she struggled to be loved. I remember that same night, you know, the boyfriend at home, we had to go stay with my grandma. They left us from the sheriff's department, and took a couple of cops, took us to our house. The boyfriend knew. I remember going back for some of our things, and I just remember thinking, like, it was the scariest moment for me ever, because we went back there to get some of our stuff, and we had these big cops. He physically it was around Christmas time. He physically threw our Christmas tree out the door. Like, this guy was crazy psycho at the cops. He was just like going nuts because he knew something was up. You know, he knew something was going on. And I remember my mom, man, she was so confused. She was in the middle of her addiction so bad, you know, and I knew she loved us, but I also knew she was sick, you know, and she loved this guy. And I know she just didn't understand how all this could have been happening and her not know, you know. But so they built this case. That man ended up doing, he got 10 years, and they brought my sister back up. We went to trial, and he took 10 years. He took a plea bargain and took 10 years. But rewind a little bit, when all the abuse started happening, like I said, we already, you know, I already struggled, you know, and I remember when we grew up, we smoked weed for breakfast with my mom, literally. Like, I remember going before school, we would be drinking coffee, and we'd have this little bowl we would pass around, and we would be all like smoking weed for breakfast, because that was just what it was. Like, my mom was a cool mom. We smoked weed. And so I smoked from a young age. I smoked cigarettes way before I should have been. I smoked weed way before most people even smoked cigarettes. But when at like the age of 12, I started 11, 12, I went from smoking weed to kind of taking Xanax. And when my abuse really spiraled out of control, when things really got deep, I went from taking, you know, a few Xanax here and there and drinking here and there to taking a lot of Xanax, which is like an anxiety medicine. But if you take it in too much of it, it really can numb you. It really can make, you know, you could black out, and you can forget a lot of things and hide a lot of things that you got going on. So I started taking Xanax and drinking more, and my drug addiction started. And so it went from just me being, you know, the girl who smoked the weed, to the girl who took the Xanax to hide the pain, you know. And so he gets sentenced. By the time I'm 18, I'm like moving all around the United States trying to, you know, chase my drug habit. Do you want me to move forward with that now?
Yeah, because it's pretty deep in your perspective.
It is, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for some people to handle.
I got time, you know.
So as my drug addiction spirals out of control, like I said, I started off with weed and alcohol. And then next thing you know, I'm taking Xanax. Next thing you know, I'm traveling around the United States. I'm literally, from the age of 18, up to 14, I'm taking Xanax. By the time I'm 18, I'm doing any drug I can get my hands on, literally. I mean, if I could get a hold of it, I would do it. I lived in New York. I worked at an escort service where I would just literally, and I wasn't into like super hard drugs then, but I didn't value myself, you know, and I just wanted to get high. I had so much trauma and crap that I never dealt with, that I just kept masking with just more things and more things and more things to try to cover up the stuff that the crap I didn't want to deal with in my heart, you know, and in my head. So traveled around the United States, just different boyfriends, different guys, different everything. Next thing you know, by the time I am 23, I'm a full-blown heroin addict, selling my body to get high, to anything I could get my hands on, I would do it. I mean, I'm robbing people, I'm sleeping with people's husbands, I'm selling my body in motels, I'm out there. And so I got pulled over a couple times, and my mom got clean, by the way, whenever that happened, whenever all that was brought up. My mom's sobriety started right after that. My mom got away from that guy. She still struggled to be loved, but and to find, you know, a mate that was good to her, you know, but she got clean. And so by the time my drug addiction had spiraled out of control, by the time I'm 23, I still love my mama like crazy. I love my little sisters. Though I was on drugs, I still went and saw my mom a lot anytime I could. I went and saw her once, and she caught me using in her bathroom, and I was shooting up in her bathroom, and she knew I had warrants. I had gotten pulled over a couple other times, and I had gotten in trouble, you know, arrested with Xanax. So I had a couple petty charges, and then I had a couple, like I got a DUI, you know, just a couple things that I had hanging over my head. So I was on probation at the time. I don't remember exactly what for, but then my mom caught me using in her bathroom, and she was sober at that point. She was no longer the cool mom. She was the cool mom. You could smoke weed, but she wasn't going to allow you to be doing that. You know, she went way too many nights wondering if I was going to survive. So when she caught me using in her bathroom, when I left, she called the police, and she said, "This is my daughter, Stacia. She has very serious drugs on her right now. She has a warrant for her arrest, and this is the road that she's on." And I was on my way back to the city where I lived. We lived a couple hours away from each other. Even though I was on drugs, I was still a hustler. I was bringing money up there to help her with Christmas for my sisters, but that didn't make no difference to my mama. She still called the police, which I'm so grateful for, because that saved my life.
Well, it's love.
So I got pulled over. I got caught with some syringes, and I of course told them I was babysitting some kid, and it was his diabetic medicine. So they took me in, but I was able to post bail right away, because they couldn't prove what it was. They had to send it to a lab. And fast forward a little bit, I'm in the middle of just like active addiction. I mean, I am just like sleeping around, robbing around, you name it, I did it. I hurt everybody. I mean, I was the worst kind of sinner. I mean, I did it all. And so I get a knock on the door, and I get arrested because the drugs that came back what they were. And so I go into county jail. And then in county jail, I'm facing charges. I'm facing serious charges for the first time. Like, things have started to add up. I was on probation, got pulled over for a controlled substance. I was on probation for a controlled substance, which was Xanax, from fighting, because I would get so high on Xanax that I would steal and get caught and fight or whatever. And then I got caught with heroin after I used at my mom's, and those syringes. And when they came back, I went to county jail. And so I had all this stuff that was built up. And so they offered me time. And so I'm sitting in county jail, and I started detoxing. Like, I have literally spent the last 10 years using something, you know, of some sort, either benzos, which are some type of Xanax or something, all the way up to heroin. I mean, I had been a heroin addict for a year and a half, and I was using a significant amount of heroin for a tiny little girl. And I started to detox in there, and they have what's called protocol, which is where when you detox off of really hard drugs like that, you shake and you shiver and you sweat and you have diarrhea really bad. And it's just like, it's a really, really awful thing to go through. But they have what's called protocol, where they give you a Benadryl pill to sleep, and they give you an anti-diarrhea medicine. And that's all they do. And I mean, that's a horrible thing for somebody that's been on drugs for a really long time, and you're in there and I'm withdrawing from drugs in there. It was awful. I remember laying on that concrete floor and just saying, like, man, I just want to die. I had never felt so bad in my life. I mean, I laid on that floor and I detoxed off of drugs, and I shook and I sweated and I shaked. It was insane. I remember one of the cops coming in. I remember being in there for almost 2 weeks and laying on that floor, and I was about a week and a half in, almost 2 weeks. And I remember this cop coming in, one of the guards, they used to just I was so disgusting. Like, I would literally just sit over there and sweat, and just like, it was nasty. But they would just push my food across the floor. They would just shove it over there. Like, okay, if you don't eat it, just shove it back, because all you want to do is sleep because you feel horrible. But I remember this guard coming in there, and I just remember him making me get up and giving me this bleach cleaner. And he just sat over on the thing, and he made me clean off my mat. You're on this little like 1.5 inch thick blue mat. And he made me get up, and he made me bleach everything, because I'm sure I stunk. I'm sure I was gross in there. I just remember him looking at me and saying, "How old are you?" And I remember telling him, and he's all, what's your drug of choice? And then I literally saw tears in his eyes. He's like, I have a daughter that age. You're better than this. Like, you're better than this. And I just remember thinking, like, dude, you don't know me. Like, you don't know what kind of life I've lived. You don't know the stuff I carry, you know? So I detoxed on that floor, and then they offered me time. And so they offered me a year, and they said it was called a 61-day turnaround then. And which, come to find out, after I got in, there was no such thing as a 61-day turnaround. My public defender just told me that, which was fine. But so I took the time, and I go into prison, and which was scary crap. Okay, it's prison, first of all. I'm like 95 pounds soaking wet. I'm a girl who's literally used for the last decade so that she doesn't have to feel, you know. Do you want me to start on the prison part now?
Yeah, like those are some of the. Well, I heard prison stories from the men I had on, but I haven't heard one from a woman's perspective. So that'll be interesting. Let's get into that.
Yeah, so prison is no joke. I mean, for some people it's great. Some people it's, 3 hots and a cot. But for me, it was like, man, I hadn't felt anything in a long time. Not to mention I had trauma that I had just suppressed and just put away. And so it was crazy, man. It was scary. Like, but when I first went in, I'm barely getting over detox, like I'm barely coming out, like it's just starting to not be like the detox is going away. And so things are starting to come up. Like I hadn't felt anything in a long time. And I just remember I was in there with one girl. The girl in my cell, you're locked down 23-1. You only get to get out. You couldn't even get out at first. They do what's called intake. So when you first go in, you're not allowed to be around anybody until they make sure you're medically cleared, to make sure you don't have some kind of disease or whatever, which by the grace of God, I thought for sure whenever they tested me in there, I told you I was all around. I had been all across the United States, being with living the worst kind of life. So when they tested me, I thought for sure that was God right there. Cause I told the lady she was crazy when she came back and told me that I didn't have any diseases. I was like, nah, I'm gonna need you to check again. Cause you don't understand. I've been using syringes that weren't mine. I've been all over. It was not a good situation. So that was God's favor right there. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, man, God shielded me. But so I go in and I'm feeling like I have not felt. I'm hungry. Okay. I'm a girl who likes to eat. Not when she was on drugs, but I'm a girl, like I like my food. I like to eat. I am hungry. I am lonely. Like I can't talk to my family. You don't get write outs at first. You're in till you get medically cleared. So you spend like 3 weeks in there just with the one person. This girl did not like me. She was going crazy in there. I'm in this with this lady who's literally losing her mind. I'm losing my mind because I'm like, I don't even know what is going on. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to be in there. I had other pending charges, the DUIs and stuff that I hadn't taken care of. So I'm in there, man. And I just remember being like the most broken I'd ever felt, and I've been through some hard stuff and I remember some real hard times, but I remember being in that room and I was so cold, it was so cold in there. And I remember just being so hungry, and I remember being so lonely and so afraid because I didn't understand how to feel the things that I was feeling. I had all this trauma and hurt and shame. Like I had robbed everyone. Like I had robbed my grandparents. I had robbed my mom. I had stolen money out of my sister's piggy banks. I had slept with my friends' husbands. Like you name it, I had done it. You know what I mean? I had done people wrong for 10 years, to try to, and it's no excuse. I'm not justifying, the things that I went through that made it better. It doesn't. I made horrible choices. But things started just coming up, and I just remember being in there and just feeling all those things, cold, hungry, afraid, and shameful, just full of shame and guilt, and just so much pain. And I just remember thinking I can't do this. I remember looking at the sheets I gotta get out of this. I can't do this for a year. I don't even know how to be, I don't even know how to I don't know how to feel anymore, let alone sitting here for a year, looking at the sheets crazy. How am I gonna twist these things up, to get me out of this, not to break out, but to take out, And I just remember, when I was little, my mom, pre-drugs, before my mom got on drugs, she used to put us on the church bus. Like I said, we grew up poor. And so that seed of the gospel was planted in my heart at a young age. Even though I ran from it, it was there. I remember I remember people telling me about Jesus, and I remember that there was a Jesus, and I remember, the Jesus Loves Me song. I remembered those seeds, and so when I started feeling all those things, it was overwhelming, and I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't talk to my mom. I couldn't write out. I was writing on the back of the manual that they give you, like, that when you come in, they strip you down and they give you this book, this like bunch of papers. I'm like writing on the back, writing letters. I'm like losing my mind in here, looking at the sheets crazy because I don't even know how I'm going to handle this. And I just remember one day I just got on my knees. I was just like, I remember crying out to God. I always cry on this point, y'all. I always tell people, I don't cry when I talk about the abuse, and I went through some real bad abuse, and I don't ever cry when I talk about that stuff. I cry when I think of this part, man, because God is so good. I just remember getting on my knees, and I just remember crying out to God and just saying, like, if you're real, like, if you're up there, like, if you just help me to deal with this, help me to be able to stand up and be able to just not feel so ashamed. If you help take some of this, I promise I'll change. I got on my knees and I just cried out to him in desperation. I just said, help me. Just please, if you're up there, just help me. And when I got up, it wasn't all gone, but I felt like I could breathe again. I felt this hope, I felt this little bit of peace. And they had a King James Bible in there. And man, I sucked at school. I told you I was a bad kid, but man, I picked up that Bible, and when I knew, I stood up off that floor and things felt lighter on my chest. Like it wasn't all gone, but I felt like I could breathe again. That's the easiest way when I try to explain it to people, because it's so hard to explain. But it finally felt like I could take a breath and not feel like somebody was choking me, I finally felt just a little bit of hope. Like it wasn't all gone, but there was a little bit of hope. And I picked up that Bible and I started studying. I started reading. I didn't even understand half of it, but I'm like, you know what? You helped me get up off that floor today. And I applied myself. I started to, I enrolled in the classes that they had. I started dealing with my trauma. I studied in that Bible until I couldn't study anymore. Man, I just started just taking it in. And I just started every day. I would get on my knees and I would ask God, like, help me get through today. Help me get through just one more day, like help me mend this relationship with my mom. Help me to be able to write her a letter that help me to forgive, like I got this man that I hate, and I had this hate in my heart because this guy hurt me so bad, and I wanted to forgive him. I just felt God in my heart saying, like, baby girl, I got freedom for you, but you can't take that with you. You can't take that hate with you. I wrote that man a letter in there, and I forgave him. I forgave my mom. Me and my mom worked on our relationship. I built up my relationship with my family. I always cry when I talk about God's goodness, man. I don't cry when I talk about that abuse, but man, it hits hard when you think about how much he's taken from you,
Yep.
When you think about his goodness and all the things he delivered me from, it hits me deep in my gut. But he gave me strength to get up that day, and I just started applying myself. And when I made him that promise on that floor, I stuck to it. And I said, man, if you just help me to be able to breathe, I promise you I'll change. And I meant it. I started going to classes. I dealt with my trauma. I learned how to cope and build my relationships back up. And I forgave the man who hurt me, and I worked on things with my mom. And I got out and I did a year, and I got out. I was on probation and parole. I still had a lot of building to do. It didn't just all go away overnight, but he helped me be able to get through it, and gave me the strength, and he gave me the will to want to do it, and I came home, and I ended up getting married. I got married on the beach in a white wedding dress, and coming from a girl who prostituted herself all across the United States and had so much guilt and shame, I wore a white wedding dress, and I felt worthy of it. I felt like, man, God took all of that, and I finally, for once, felt worthy. I came home to having I had the man who was then my husband, he had a son. Like, I went from where I couldn't even take care of myself, I didn't even know how to take care of me, to, man, I got this kid that's going to be looking up to me. I'm like, God, I don't know if I can do it, but I know I trust you. And I know you gave me the strength then, and you know what, I know this person's from you, and he loved me. He used to bring my mom to come and visit me, and he loved me and stuck by my side, and he had a son. And so I went from not even being able to care for me to coming home and having an 8-year-old that was looking up to me. And I was like, God, I'm scared, I couldn't even take care of me. Please help me be a mom. Like, don't let me mess this up, don't let me ruin this kid's life. I don't even barely know how to take care of myself. But I came home, and we got married. I have a daughter. Like, I birthed a child, me, broken me, the girl from the cornfields, that had all that shame and pain. I had a baby. I've now adopted a child, my sister's child. We now have her. I'm a mom of 3. I'm a wife. I serve in my church. I teach kids at church. I work all the same programs that I used to feed kids on, that I used to get fed on, that I used to walk to and depend on as a kid. I'm very heavily involved in them here. I served with my kids this week, at the food bank down the street, and then at the little kids program that we do here. I get to work those programs, and I get to give hope to other kids. I mean, I have told my testimony here a couple times, but I've been to Haiti. I did a couple mission trips where I got to go and I got to share the love of Jesus in another country. And I got to share with women who had been there's a lot of sexual abuse that goes on there. And a lot of women think that you can't come back from that, that you got to carry that stuff around, but it's not the truth, man. Like, and I thought all those years that I had to get it right, and then I could come to God. I had to get it right, and then I could make things right with my, once I was strong enough, I kept telling myself, once I finally get the strength to just get through this, then I'll mend my relationships. Then I'll get right with God. Man, that's a lie. That's the devil's lie. I'm telling you, because when I called out to him, I turned my face and he was right there. He was right there reminding me that he had been there the whole time. And he instantly gave me peace. He instantly gave me hope. He instantly filled me with the love that I had been seeking my whole life. Instantly. So if anything, if even just one person hears right now and just hears that, man, you don't got to wait. You don't got to get it together before you come to him. He wants you right where you are. He wants you right in your brokenness. He wants you right in your pain and your shame and your guilt. And he wants to come in and he wants to take it. Man, he did. He did that for me. I am a mom now. I'm a mom of 3. I'm a wife. I love serving in my community. I love giving hope to women who have been through even a part of what I've been through, and letting them know that, man, you don't got to get it together first. Our God is able to meet you right where you are. That's it. That's my story. That's God's story.
I'm glad you're able to share. I'm glad that I'm able to share this. I tell people, it doesn't matter what we've done, what we've been through, and the type of person we are. The day you fully surrender and give God a chance, there's nothing that he can't do for you. There's nothing he can't turn around, and you brought that out and you proclaimed it. And I know this is going to reach the right person. Wow.
It's amazing, man. And then the other thing, obedience. It took me so long. I get my testimony in other countries and felt, like I was comfortable doing it there. God put on my heart for literally 2 years to speak. Like, girl, you need to speak. Like, I just kept feeling, I wrote about it hundreds of times. Like, God, I feel you want me to speak. I feel you want me to share. But I let my own like insecurities and like thinking I needed to get it right first, like get my life together. I got 3 kids, think I need to make the right time, wait till the right season. I waited to share. Man, when I finally got the confidence to post that video, I posted it at 7 or 6 o'clock at night. By the next morning, it had 1,100 views by 8 o'clock. And I had 85 messages in my inbox of people who said, I needed that. I needed that hope. You made me feel like I could talk about the things that happened to me. I'm going to talk to my mom today about the things that happened to me. Or you know what? I'm going to a rehab this week. I let my own insecurities keep me from sharing it when the whole time God was saying, like, speak, share with somebody. And I feel now here it is a week later or a week and a half later, I have barely 500 friends on my Facebook. Okay, I don't know that many people. I'm from the cornfields. That video's got over 8,000 views. Hundreds of people have reached out to me and said, you don't know what that did for me. You don't know what that did for me. And man, I'm nobody. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm just a broken girl that gave it to Jesus and let him use her. And when I stepped out in that obedience and stepped out in that faith and let the Spirit speak through me and told people, man, God moved. So I hope this encourages someone else to just want to speak out, because man, we can set people free with our testimonies.
Right. I tell people all the time, I get in contact with people and they're like, well, a lot of people have some heavy stories that I've come in contact with that have meant, well, I don't know if God wants me, or I don't know if I can do it at town. Look, let me pray about it. This is your testimony, your story will reach somebody. I know it was, and it's meant for a purpose. You went through it because you had to go through, but it's meant for a purpose. If you just share it and know that's gonna touch somebody, know it. It is, and I'm glad you said it, and I encourage the ones that are listening and watching to don't be afraid to step out. Don't be afraid to tell your story. You know that your story and your life will reach somebody and will help save somebody from that's going through what they're going through, and possibly save someone's life from suicide.
Yes.
You never know what
Yes.
your words and just that one word will do to get somebody encouragement.
Yes. And I think about, man, 8,000 people, all the that's why God was saying, speak. It's time to speak. There are people that need to hear it. People we think, even if you think it's insignificant, we all got a story of where we met, where the Lord has met us, where he has provided for us, where he has showed up, where he has delivered us from. People need to hear that. People need that hope. We're in the middle of a broken world right now. People need it more than ever.
Especially right now, yeah. Yeah. I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Sharing.
Thank you so much.
Know that this is going to reach the right person. It's not ironic, not funny, but each time I upload something, I pray, God, let this reach the right person. And every time the right person hears that, I'll get a message. Oh, I can relate to this brother's story, or I relate to what the sister said. Like you and the last woman that I had, you guys met through it and were able to relate. And that was a blessing to me, because I know once I answered the call of God and I answered to do what he wanted me to do, I knew that people were going to be brought together. And that's my blessing. That's why I say I live it and does their fruits. And I just enjoy doing what I'm doing, be able to share and be able to talk to people such as yourself.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you, everyone who listens. You guys be blessed. Share your story. We all got one. Share it.
Amen. I mean, we're gonna. I don't know how much more we can do, but we're gonna call that an episode. And I thank you, and be blessed. And you have a good rest of your afternoon. And I want to thank you and know that this will reach the right person.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a good day. God bless.
You too. Bye-bye.